Hello, I am Sarah with CTD.
I'm Jason. I'm also with CTD, and this is our guest, Joe Hogan.
Hey guys, I am artist Joe Hogan. I don't really, I don't know, what have I done? So I've been a licensed Star Wars artist for the past 11 years, which is really weird to say out loud when I think about it's been 11 years already. I've done licensed sketch cards for Tops for maybe about 5 years, and then after that, I kind of graduated to doing more like licensed fine art prints with Acme, and I've been part of the Star Wars Celebration art show a couple times. So,
Thank you for joining us.
thank you guys for having me. Of
Oh,
course.
you're welcome. We wanted to talk to you a little bit today about Star Wars and specifically your clone art.
Oh, okay.
To get
Twist
this,
my arm. Okay.
right. So to get this started, tell us about your earliest memory of Star Wars.
I think the earliest one I can remember is I was about 8 years old, and I knocked on the door to my friend's house to see if he wanted to come out and play, and he said, "Oh yeah, I'll be a few minutes. Come on in." And he had Empire Strikes Back playing on, so I sat there and I was waiting for him, and it was Bespin, so the carbon freezing chamber and all that stuff. And that was the first time I had ever seen anything from Star Wars. I didn't know anything about Star Wars, so this is like 1995, we'll say. And I was just like, I don't want to go outside anymore. I want to watch this. This is weird and cool. I've never seen anything like this before. And I think my birthday was 2 or 3 weeks later. And I asked my parents, hey, can I have these weird Star Wars movies for my birthday? And they got me that trilogy VHS set. It actually just come out, where it was, the big Darth Vader, the big Stormtrooper on Empire, and then the big Yoda on Return of the Jedi. So, and then that was it. I sat down and I watched all of them in a day, and that was it. The rest is history.
That's super awesome. So, like, what would you say was like your favorite moment in like Star Wars, or like what kind of made you fall in love with all of that?
It's so hard. I mean, even to this day, I think Luke training on Dagobah has just always been like, it's just so much meat you can take out of those scenes, with like even like life lessons, right? Where do or do not, there is no try. All of that stuff has been, especially my mantra since I started doing Star Wars art, or trying to do Star Wars art in the beginning. And just like, perseverance and all that stuff. And I don't believe it. Yeah, that's why you fail, genius, because you don't believe in yourself. You don't believe in the things you can do. And all that stuff on Dagobah is just so plus like Yoda is amazing, and Frank Oz is amazing, and it's just so strange that like this Jedi Master, size matters not, all these little things just kind of like woven together to just kind of, really the point was, I guess, other than believe in yourself, is things aren't always what they seem. And that's such like a real life true thing that just kind of applies to everything, I think. And I don't know, that's just, whenever anybody asks me that question, like I always go straight back to Dagobah. That's just always the case.
Great.
That's a wonderful moment.
So obviously you sort of grew up in the the era of the original trilogy, but a lot of your current art is around the clones. And so I have to ask, like, what was it that drew you to draw the clones?
I think it was, at first, it was the fact that I always really liked stormtroopers, and I didn't know, like, I don't really know why I like stormtroopers. Like, their design was awesome, and it was always really difficult because, growing up in the 90s, I played a lot of video games. So, Dark Forces and Shadows of the Empire, all you're doing is killing stormtroopers and Imperial. So I was like, oh, I don't really want to do this. They're cool looking. So finally, when Attack of the Clones came around, it's like, oh, good guy stormtroopers, I can get behind this. That's really cool. And I don't know what it was, but it was just like, I always really liked the design. I mean, chances are, why do you like this? When that question is posed to me, it's because it just looks really cool. I really like the design. I mean, obviously I'm an artist, so I've always been like a very visual person. So if something appeals to me visually, chances are I'm gonna gravitate towards it. And yeah, just the fact that we could cheer on these stormtroopers, because they're not stormtroopers, they're not the bad guys anymore, they're the good guys. That was a big part of it. And then, later on, as as all the Clone Wars media stuff came out, and then eventually Revenge of the Sith, we learned a little bit more about these guys. Like, they weren't just faceless, mindless drones. Like, some of them had personalities. Like, and it was cool to see, especially like the early ARC troopers in the early expanded universe. Cody was cool to see. And then, after a while you saw them. I mean, you guys know the deal. Like, all these clones started decorating their armor differently. And then, of course, later on, when the Filoni Clone Wars came along, like, every clone was an individual, and it was just, off the charts. But yeah, I mean, I think that was really the appeal to me as baby Joe Hogan. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point, because like, yeah, the whole point of reason why we love the CTD is because despite that it's all the same costume, like, we can all have that a little bit of artistic freedom in terms of, like, which clones we like color wise or just personality wise. But yeah, so like, speaking kind of on, like, early Joe Hogan, who were some of, like, kind of the inspirations for your art? Who were some kind of like the early things that influenced you?
I mean, I would be remiss if I don't say Mr. Gendy Tartakovsky, which I'm sure is, if anyone has seen my art style, it's still a huge compliment to me when people say, "Oh, that reminds me of the Gendy Tartakovsky Clone Wars series," because that, to me, is the holy grail. As much as I love, the CG recent Clone Wars series, that really kept my interest in drawing that show. And just like Samurai Jack and all the other shows that he's worked on. Bruce Timm, who did the Batman, the animated series, Justice League, Superman animated series. Sean Galloway, who I think is most famous for working on Spectacular Spider-Man, the TV series, as the character designer on there. I was actually very lucky enough to take an online class, like a portfolio class with him a few years ago, and that was amazing. And he's like a wealth of knowledge, so that was really cool. And I think I got to stick it in, even though it's not really a huge like, you might not see the influence on my art now, Akira Toriyama, because I think if I wasn't such a Dragon Ball fan and Dragon Ball Z back in high school, like, that was kind of the critical moment where I probably would have stopped drawing altogether. But because I was so into DBZ, and because of that, like, other animes, I just kept drawing. Like, I couldn't stop drawing because I was so, like, visually inspired by all the stuff I was watching. I probably would have stopped in grammar school, but because of that stuff in high school, there came a point in high school where it's like, I don't really know what I want to do with my life, but I love drawing, and I love drawing stuff like this. So maybe I'll try that. And everybody was very, encouraging around me. And that was kind of where that went from there.
All right, that's amazing.
Yeah, awesome.
I love the anime in there too.
Oh yeah,
especially because
sure.
like 90s anime really had to be dedicated to find it.
Yes.
Yeah. It was a lot of we had a store near us that sold bootleg VHSs, because there weren't DVDs yet. There were no, like, official releases. So people would just make copies of tapes, and people would make, like, custom kind of like stickers on the sides of the VHSs, and they just sold those. And I was there, like, every time I had allowance money to burn or whatever, I would go to Game Champ, and I would be buying whatever, subtitled anime or whatever. Like, oh, that's cool, that looks new, whatever. Yeah, I'll take that. So for sure.
These kids these days, they don't know how easy they have it.
They don't know, man.
Yeah, we may have to explain VHS tapes to a few people.
Oh yeah.
And the struggle, the real
We need to pause for a Google search. So it sounds like we covered a little bit, like, the inspiration from your art style and what caused you to pursue art. What are some of the challenges that you faced in this pursuit, sort of as you moved away from, like, that high school mentality of, like, I can draw, to how do I make a career out of this? Or can I make a career?
Yeah, I mean, really, from the beginning until, I mean, even now, in a lot of ways, I think a lot of it is rejection and or self-confidence stuff, because you know, so when I started art school, you know, I went from high school where, you know, I was a big, you know, a big fish in a little pond, and now you're in an ocean. And, you know, you know, I don't want to say I was naturally gifted or anything like that, but I drew a lot. So I practiced a lot. And I would say like a lot of people came to me with questions back in high school. But then I went to art school. I had no formal training. And all of a sudden, in my opinion, I was like the worst person. Like I didn't know what I was doing, surrounded by all these people who like really did. So that was kind of a like a moment where I really had to decide and dig deep, and ask myself, is this something I really want to do? And if it is, I'm going to be competing with these people for a job out of college. So if I want to have any hope, I'm going to have to work twice as hard as anybody else here, because I'm behind already and I need to catch up to where they're going to be by the end of college. So that was what I did. Like it really just was a matter of building a work ethic that you could argue now might be a little too, I'm not a spring chicken anymore. So maybe like the all-nighters aren't the best idea anymore, but you know, it was a matter of, I really wanted it and I wasn't going to take no for an answer. So I was just going to do what I had to do to get better. So it was a lot of self-teaching, a lot of research on my own, a lot of, you know, coming out of my shell and asking, you know, a lot of either teachers or like other people, you know, how do you do that? Like how, you know, what's your mentality when you approach stuff like that? And I think that's kind of how I came out of my shell, was because I wanted it so bad. I was very introverted when I was younger. I mean, still kind of am to a degree. But it was something I really had to overcome in order to just get to a place where I felt like, okay, I think I'm deserving of, you know, I think my work is at a level now where, you know, it's worthy of being compensated financially for it. And then, you know, after art school, you lose that, you know, kind of the training wheels come off, right? Like there's no group critiques anymore. There's no, you know, there really are no lifelines. It's just like, you're on your own. What are you going to do about it? So it was, you know, like anything else, there was a lot of rejection, and it was just a matter of, you gotta keep pushing. You gotta keep trying. You gotta put yourself out there. You're going to deal with, you know, people hating your stuff. Like it's just the way it is. But what really helped, I think, was finding a lot of like-minded people. Like I know you guys know artist Chris D. He and I were starting out around the same time, and we had the exact same dream. Like we wanted to do Star Wars art. You know, I saw that Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars series, and that was the catalyst for me. Where it's like, this is what I want to do. I want to make Star Wars drawing. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know if there's going to be anything for me, but this is the thing that I want to do. And when I was, you know, when I was in art school, I was always doing Star Wars stuff for whatever assignments they were giving me. And my teachers were like, stop doing Star Wars. There's no future in this. Stop doing Star Wars art. Little did they know. But so many of them said to me, there's no future in this. Don't put all your eggs in this basket. And I understand where they were coming from, but I was like, this isn't a phase, Mom. This is my life. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things where I was just so focused. And then meeting other people who had that same dream. That's why Chris and I are kind of have this like weird, notorious bromance, because like we like our bond was clad in iron a decade ago when we both set out and said, we're gonna do this, we're gonna make this happen, and somehow we both did it. You know, how many times he's helped me, how many times I've helped him, and you know, we try to help all of our friends along the way. We always try to remember you know, where we were when we started out, because like the thing that Chris and I really like to do is, once we get in the club with the cool people, we like to go and hold the back door open, like, come on, all our friends get in, let's go, so we always try to, like, you know, convince other people who you know are interested in the same stuff we are, like, yeah, come on, we'll show you how to do it. So yeah, I mean, really, it's just like a self-doubt thing, you know, because like after a while, rejection over and over and over, it's gonna weigh you down, and you just have to really ask yourself, how much do I want this? Is it worth it? Is it not worth it? And so far so good. So far it's worked out. I'm very stubborn and haven't quit yet. So
Well,
Uh,
yeah, it's really interesting you
I,
kind of touch on that because it's like, there's one thing that people kind of forget is that like art is a little bit of that talent, obviously, but there's a lot of work that goes into it. You study, you work your stuff, and you practice that same line like over and over and over until you get it just right, and you develop your own style. I think that's just always worth like definitely touching on, is that art is just as much as that that process as it is, your natural
mhm.
talent and affinity for it.
Yeah, they say there's three things you need to be two of three things to make it in this business. Uh, one is easy to work with, uh, two is on time and punctual, and three is super talented. I think I'm easy to work with and I'm always on time. So that's where I feel like I fall into. So if you're super talented and you're not always on time, as long as you're easy to work with, people are gonna, whatever. Like they'll deal with you not being on time. And what was the other one? If you're not easy to work with, as long as you're punctual and you're super talented, you're gonna keep getting work. But it's funny, like the thing I hear a lot is, oh, you must be so talented and everything. It's like, but like the thing is, drawing is an acquired skill, and what I mean by that is anybody can learn how to do it. Now, if you're naturally talented or whatever, which I think is kind of a made up thing. Um, Really, the people who are passionate about something and enjoy doing something, they're going to do it more, right? Because they're going to get that, those endorphins are going to release when, oh, I made this drawing and it came out really good and I really like it. And then everybody, oh, good job, way to go, keep drawing. Like you're doing great work. Like it makes you feel good, so you're going to keep doing it because it makes you feel good. And if you're naturally creative or whatever, that stuff is gonna, it's just gonna inspire you to keep going. And really, anybody, like nobody knows how to draw when they're coming out of the womb, right? Like every time you draw, you're going to learn and pick something else up. Some people might be a little faster at that, but it's not like, you know either one of you guys would be able to do what I'm doing or what the greats are doing. It's just a matter of how much time are you putting into, what are you studying, what are you looking into. um Who's teaching it is obviously another thing, like someone who knows what they're doing and they're kind of passing that stuff on to you. All that stuff matters. But yeah, it really is just a matter of putting the time and effort in. You're, what do they say, to be a master at something you have to, what is it, like 10,000 hours or something
Yeah,
obnoxious like that.
something like that. Yeah,
So
there's just like anything else. There's that grind.
for sure,
something crazy like that.
for sure.
So we talked a little bit about like the endorphins, right? And the positive, happy feelings of art and being acknowledged for your art. So what are some of like the most rewarding moments you've had as an artist?
So there's one that comes to mind, but I'll do the other one first. I think the coolest like fanboy moment of my career was, I worked on a fan film called Hughes the Force in, I think it was 2011. Might have been making it in 2010, but it was like finished in 2011. And I did this like prequel comic book for them, and it was this little like kind of like a meshing of John Hughes movies like Weird Science and Star Wars. So it was just like kind of like a coming of age high school story. And I did the comics and I did the movie poster and all that stuff. And eventually they actually got James Arnold Taylor to do a little live action cameo where he dressed up as Obi-Wan in the film. And then I got to meet him at the premiere. They actually did a premiere, like they rented a theater and did like a little red carpet premiere. So, and they flew me out too, which was really cool. So I got to go to that. And I knew he was going to be there. He was going to be hosting a Q&A. So afterwards, I actually drew some artwork and like very timidly, like, oh, Mr. Taylor, hi. I'm trying to be an artist and I love your work. So like I drew like Tidus from Final Fantasy X and Obi-Wan and everything. And I gave it to him and he looked at it and he looked at me and he's like, I really like your work. Would you be interested in doing a motion comic for my stage show? And I had never done any animation or motion stuff at that point. And I was just like, yes, okay. sure. So inside I'm screaming and panicking, like, how am I going to do this? But I mean, I guess it's just like anything else, right? When a big opportunity comes your way, you say yes, and then you figure it out. And that's what I did. So I did that, and I did his, and he really liked it. And then we've been working together ever since. So every once in a while, I'll get a phone call from James, and he'd be like, hey, you know, do you have time to do this? And then he just spits in like, oh, thank you very much, Master Hogan. And I'm like, he did the voice. So he's the man. He is amazing.
Yeah, he is probably one of the sweetest people I've ever met.
And he's like that all the time, man. Like it's not an act. Like that's him all the time. He's such like a genuine, like he's so wholesome. Like the word for James Arnold Taylor is wholesome. The man is walking wholesomeness personified. And so the other one is a little bit longer. So let me know if I'm rambling too much. Kind of going off the rejection stuff. Celebration Orlando 2017. That was the 4th time I was attempting to get in the art show. At that point, I had never been in it. Done were Star Wars sketch cards, and I was trying to get to that like next level. And you know, the first 3 times. So the way it works for anyone who doesn't know, the art show is basically Artist Alley for Star Wars Celebration, and you can't. You're not. It's not like you apply for it. You have to be invited after you submit a concept for what your exclusive print for the show is going to be. So everybody kind of comes together during that time, and we kind of brainstorm. And you know, Christy, I love the man. He will give it to me. He's like, dude, this looks like crap, man. You can't do this. Start over. And that's what you need. Like, honestly, you need someone. You need the thick skin to hear that, and you need people to tell you like, this is not working. You got to start over. Don't be lazy. So by this point, I had been rejected 3 times for the show, and the wait is like 2 or 3 years for the next one at this point. So it's just like this agonizing, long, hard wait. And you know, for like months, I'm working on this thing, and I'm like, is this any good? Like, am I wasting my time? Do they just not want me? What am I supposed to do? Like, should I have done something else? Should I have like become a psychologist or something, like instead of being an artist? Is this going to go anywhere? What am I doing with my life? And I remember saying to myself, okay, here's what I'm going to do with this. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm not going to do what I think they want, which is what I had done for the past 3. I'm not going to worry about, oh, it's the 35th anniversary of Empire Strikes Back, so that's what they want. Or whatever, which is what a lot of people do, and I get it. I get why they do that. It's smart because it's relevant and everything. But I had always done that, and I said, I'm going to do what I care about doing. I care about clone troopers. I'm going to do a clone trooper print. How many clone troopers do I want to do? I don't know. I'll do like 10 or something. It ended up being 66. So all my blood, sweat, and tears, I put everything I had into it, and then I got in. And it was amazing and a career high, and it was the most insane. And I was like breaking down. Oh, Chris, thank you for your help, Chris. Thank you for everything. And then after that, everything that could go wrong did go wrong, leading up to Celebration.
Oh no!
So Chris lives in Luxembourg, and he had actually said to me like, "Hey, since you're getting your prints done, is there any way I can pay you and you proof my prints, and we have everything together? We'll send them to Florida together because I'm in New York." If my accent wasn't obvious. So I was like, yeah, sure, man, no problem. So without naming names of the service that I used, placed the order for the prints. There was not a lot of time, and they arrive, and they are horrible and oversaturated and super dark, both mine and his. And my box, also the one with mine, arrived damaged. So it was out in the rain. They were hanging out the side and all ripped up, and I had like full-blown panic attack. If Chris were in the room with me, he would have slapped me to like, hey man, you need to fix this because I can't do anything. So you got to get it together. So that was a panic attack. And then got on the phone with them. They sent replacements, and those replacements never showed up. So I'm like, we got to do something. So I go to another place, shipped those because it was like a week left before Celebration. I had to ship those from the new printer to Florida. Got on a plane, saw them in Florida for the first time the day before Celebration started, and it was the most exhausting thing. And then I also had to ship them from Florida to, like, we had to ship some of them to Lucasfilm for approval, and then they didn't get there. They ended up in Olive Branch, Mississippi instead of the Presidio in California. I had to get on the phone with my ship. It was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare, that first celebration. So the day's there, it's day one of celebration. My table's set, like this moment that I waited for like, I don't know, 7 years or something like that. I sit down at the table and I'm just emotionally exhausted. And I just kind of like collapse, and the doors open and there's like one or two people walking around, and I'm just like in a state of just like, I don't care what happens. I made it. The prints are good. Like, fine, whatever. And maybe 15 minutes into the show opening up, a young kid comes up to my table. I'm going to get choked up. A young kid comes up to my table and he goes, I really love your work. When I heard you were going to be here, I made my mom buy a ticket for Star Wars Celebration, and we flew here from wherever I think like Texas or something. And he's like, and I want to buy your print. And I was like, it like, I felt my inside, just like my chest, just all the air got sucked out of my chest at that point. And I was like, hold it together, man, hold it. Because like at this point I was just like a wreck already. And you know, he's like, can I take my picture with you? I was like, oh yes, child, of course, come here. So like, you know, it was this amazing experience. And then as he's walking away, he goes, you're my art hero, and I want to be an artist like you when I grow up. I was like, oh, thanks, man. I pretended to go under the table to like move supply. I bawled for like 5 minutes under the table after that. And if I never get another compliment as long as I live, that will be enough for me. Because that was the moment where it felt like, you know, there was a slight shift where, you know, I spent my whole life and career looking up to these other people. To hear that somebody felt that way about my work, not about me, about my work, like the things that I put everything into, was everything. That was such a huge deal. That was probably the most, I know you're not supposed to like look to other people for validation, but like that was probably the most validating moment in my entire career. Nothing is going to top that, I think. And I did get choked up. It's such like a huge moment for me.
But I mean, that's all it takes though, is like I found that like in the whole world of adults, all it takes is like, you know, after going through all that criticism, like all it takes is for one kid to be like, that's super cool.
They give it to you straight, man. Like they are not going to sugar. If they don't like it, they're going to tell you. And like, that's cool. I appreciate that too, because honestly, a kid is going to give it to you straight. And now, you know, next time, like, okay, here's the stuff I need to pay attention to when they're my audience, when they're the crowd that I need to appeal to. So, but yeah, kids, man, like they're the best. When you want to know if something's good or not, you go to kids. They're going to tell you.
For sure. So while we're kind of like on the subject of Orlando 2017, what was your first experience like with the Legion, whether like knowing about them or experiencing with them?
That weekend was the best weekend of my life, I think. other than meeting the woman of my dreams, other than meeting Tina. Yeah, I think it was Saturday, the third day. So by that point, people had already like exhausted a lot of the surprises that they had for me that weekend. Like a lot of, like, I'm so lucky that I have so many people that are, you know, so supportive of my work. One person came dressed up as a clone trooper that I designed, like it was my original character. He got it done and like showed up at my table, I think on Friday. So I felt like every day was something different, like emotionally, like a roller coaster for me. And then Saturday, I was, you know, just selling prints, whatever. And 15 clone troopers rolled up to my table, and I'm going to pronounce his last name wrong. Is it Fab? Joe Fab?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. I think he was the detachment leader at the time.
He was the detachment XO at the time.
Okay. So he rolled up and said, hey, we're here to pick up our prints. And at this point, I was like, so like, I what? You guys need tickets to pick up prints, like if you didn't like, and like I was so like, that was the dumbest thing I could have said in that moment. I was so dumbfounded. I literally thought everybody wanted prints and like, or had already paid for them. I was like, oh, you gotta get tickets from over there. I didn't realize that like he was just like making a one-liner joke, and I was so like taken aback, and it just blew my mind. And yeah, then I was inducted into the 501st, which was another amazing experience that I got choked up then. I had no words then either. I was given this certificate to prove that I am indeed an honorary member. And actually this hat too. This was some of the swag that I was given. That this is my go-to hat. And actually speaking of go-tos, recently you guys did the Clone Trooper run. So this is my go-to hoodie at the moment. And yeah, that was a crazy moment, and all those guys and girls were amazing enough to take pictures with me and just spent some time with me talking about it. And I was very excited that the vast majority of them were represented on my print, and I was glad at that point. I was like, oh, I'm glad I did 66 and did the top 10 because all these people are on here. I think the only one I didn't have, and I will never forget it because the next time I do like a big clone one, I'm gonna include them, was the Aqua Clone Trooper, like the scuba gear Clone Trooper. And I felt so bad. I was like, oh man, that would have been a good one to include. Because by the end of the 66, I was like, I could put like a generic, green stripe. What was it, like a lieutenant or captain or not captain, sergeant or whatever. I was like, yeah, I'll stick him all the way on the side or whatever. But that would have been a good one. That would have been a good one to include. But yeah, so that was the first one. I think Brian Troyan from the Midwest Garrison was turned out to be the guy who put me up for honorary membership, because I had worked with him on, there was like a coloring pamphlet kind of thing, and he's just like, oh, do you want to do some line art? We're gonna put together like a little coloring pamphlet kind of thing. And like, I love, the fight. You guys obviously do incredible, amazing work, and the fact that you try to brighten a kid's day is a big deal to me. I was like, yeah, sure, put me on board with that. And I think that's how I connected with him, and then eventually that led to all that good stuff, and then meeting you guys, both of you guys, as a result.
I met you at Florida.
I think you and I might have met at, did you go to Chris's table? Because I was working the table in Anaheim in 2015. Were you in college?
I honestly don't remember. 2015, I'm old. My memory is not that good. But I do remember in Florida, like walking up to your table going, hi, I'm here to pick up a gift from my boyfriend. and you were so sweet, you thought we lived together at the time.
Oh, I don't know. I was like, oh, cool.
You're like, and you two can share. And I'm like, we don't live together.
Now you guys have too much Joe Hogan artwork.
Now we have a whole wall.
That's
well, a patch too.
Yeah. Speaking of, like, I love doing patches for everybody. Like, that's such a cool thing. And yeah, that all kind of like spiraled out of control after that celebration. Like, like, oh, can I get a patch? And then one person would post and be like, oh, I want a patch like that. And it just kind of like, you guys fed me for like 2 or 3 years just off those patches. It was amazing that everybody kind of, you guys, I mean, so many of you guys supported me, not even just the clone detachment, like a lot of people in the 501st at large, like came to me for work after that. It was the craziest thing. And, there was a time in there that I wasn't getting a lot of my normal work. It's just, things just slowed down, which it does when you're an artist, especially when you're a freelance artist. And honestly, like all of that stuff kept me afloat, and I'm never going to forget how clutch all of that stuff was when it happened. It really was like, it really felt like serendipity at the time. I don't know if I'm using the word correctly, serendipity, but it felt like it was.
So now we're going to get into like the really, really tough questions.
Ooh, okay.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So you have to ask, who is your favorite clone?
There's a correct answer. There's a correct answer.
There's a correct. Is it Wolf, Jason?
It could be. I don't know.
Or is there just an incorrect answer and it's Rex? My favorite, I think, for the most part, has been Fordo, because other than Alpha, Fordo was the first clone to me that felt like, oh, this guy kind of has his own personality, and he stood out to me, and he was just doing all these like crazy, weird feats of just like, oh, he just kept topping himself. So just because it was just like branded into me at such a young age, Fordo. But if we're gonna go current, like new canon, I will probably go with, this is so hard. It's
So many to
like,
choose from.
I know, and it's like choosing your favorite pet or whatever. Because I know parents have no problem choosing a favorite child. Oh man, this is really hard. I think right now, because I think Bad Batch is going really interesting places already, I think I'm gonna go with Hunter just because I like what they're doing with this character a lot. I think Rex is probably the most developed clone at this point in terms of like story arcs. But I don't know what it is. I just really like the idea of Hunter feeling like a fish out of water and now having to figure out how to not only be on the run but also be a dad. And I don't know why. I like seeing characters challenged with things that are just so out of their realm of expertise, and just watching them overcome that. So I think right now I'm going to go Hunter.
Yeah.
But I mean, really, on any given day, that's subject to change. I am talking a lot about me, and I know it's because it's my interview, but I feel like this is a question that is okay to kick back to you guys. Who are your favorite clones?
Well, usually I ask that question is, who is your favorite clone and why is it 99?
Can I change my answer?
But I always then preface it, but you can't say it's 99, that's your favorite. I think I'd also have to say besides Sinker, which is the clone that I have, and Wolf, because it's kind of like that's like the de factos. I think right now it's Echo. Watching sort of his resurrection and his inclusion into the Bad Batch. I don't know. I cried when Echo came back, full on, just no shame, and at the screening, just full on. And watching his progression, especially now into the Bad Batch episodes and the cartoon specifically, it's amazing to see someone who like leaves, is rescued, comes back, but then finds a new home that fits him better. And I don't know, it's just the kind of character development arc I really like.
What do you think his I mean, it's so early in the Bad Batch, it's kind of hard to tell. Like we know what they're kind of doing with Hunter and obviously what they're doing with Crosshair. What do you think his character growth is going to be? Because I kind of wonder if he's going to be a like, even though he found his place with the Bad Batch, I'm wondering if we're going to see him kind of like really figure out who he is now, because like what exactly is his place in the Bad Batch? Like we haven't really quite solidified it yet. He is the voice of reason. Like he is the guy like, oh, we're doing this again, huh? Okay. And then joins in the cafeteria fight or whatever. But like, I feel like every time we see him, somebody else kind of outshines him, right? Like Tech is a little bit smarter than him with the technical stuff. Wrecker, he couldn't get the clamps open on the ship, and Wrecker came and just did it. Like I feel like every time he starts to do something, somebody else comes in and does it better. So I'm wondering if there's a reason they're setting up for him to be like, well, I don't know who I am, and oh, here I am. Like that's my guess. What are you hoping to get out of Echo?
Well, I'm hoping that he finds his place. I kind of have a feeling like at some point we're going to get to a story arc or a story plot point where his sort of hybrid nature, like this weird zombie clone, I don't know what to call him, like that saves the day, right? But I've also seen enough anime to see some pretty serious death flags as we're going along. So like I am kind of like how I was ultimately prepared for the potentiality of seeing like the death of Sinker in season 7, which thankfully didn't happen. I'm kind of like preparing myself for that. Also, preparing myself in case like Wolfpack shows up and I do in fact not make it out of the series. So, but I do see death flags and I'm like, oh, this isn't going to end well for anybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely could, just because I mean, I guess I shouldn't spoil too much, but chances are we will be seeing more clone troopers, right? Fair assumption. And I think based off of who we know we will see soon, based off of who they're attached to, safe bet that others that we also are familiar with could be in tow. Yeah. I mean, well, I hope for your sake, Sinker makes it out. But yeah, you're right though. I'm excited to see what happens to Echo. Jason, what
same.
about you? Who's your clone?
I mean, like obviously de facto is Wolf, just because he's
What?
grumpy.
Wolf? Really?
He's just grumpy and irritated all the time, and I feel like that's just me, like on like a majority of my life.
It's your spirit animal.
Yeah,
Wolf?
I'm just like kind of irritated, and like I'll do it, but I'm gonna complain the whole time.
Perfect.
But barring 104th clones, I'm actually gonna go kind of a weird direction here and say Thorn, because
Thorn. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
because I mean, besides like the super iconic line and a gigantic gun, I just think that like, you know, at the very last minute he knew that like I'm absolutely not going to win, but I am sure going to make you work for it.
Mhm.
I think that's just a wonderful and spiteful mentality to have through life.
Jason, you are like the kindest, all smiles kind of guy all the time. It's so funny to hear you be like, spite. That's why I love this. It's so weird to hear you say that, but I love it. I'm behind you 100%. Good reason.
But besides Thorn, I think like in terms of like potential of where he could go, I might actually change that to Crosshair, because I feel the redemption arc
Yeah,
potentially.
I hope so. I'm worried about that. I'm worried they're because of that. Star Wars likes to kill people off when they redeem them, and I just don't. For once, they know it's not his fault. Like, just let him back in. All of it be okay. Like, don't worry, bro. We got you.
Yeah, I'm worried about that too, but we'll find out.
I hope I didn't just jinx it, or we didn't just jinx it.
Spoilers.
Yeah. Well, this is all predictions, right? So it's not like
yeah.
If you're watching it, how many episodes is it? 16 or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're watching it 13 weeks from now and we're right, it's not our fault that we're right.
That's true. So to kind of maybe pivot from Star Wars just a little bit here,
Sure.
just because I know that like you know we're not all about Star Wars. We are collectively just nerds that love a million things. Joe here loves the Ghostbusters a lot.
Yeah, a
which
little bit, tiny bit.
Yeah, because I've seen you have seen your costume with like the whole like the pack and everything, and the little,
got a pack,
little trap.
got a couple of flight suits. Yeah, I went pretty hard.
I mean, we wouldn't be fans if we didn't, right?
True.
But who's your favorite Ghostbuster?
That is an impossible question to answer. I'm offended that you would ask it, and I mean, obviously you told me this one in advance, and I still don't have an answer. Any given day, it's going to be somebody else. Everybody is amazing for their own reason. When I was younger, my favorite was Egon because he was really smart. Then it was Ray because he was always like really excited and energetic. Then I came to like really appreciate Winston because he's, you know, the everyman. He's saying everything that we're thinking, and he's just so down to earth, and he's always got like the subtle one-liners. Like he's always got like the really quotable lines. And then once my hairline started receding, Peter Venkman, because one time when I ran around with my girlfriend and a friend of mine, Carl, like just before COVID, we got in Ghostbusters flight suits. We went to Manhattan because it's only like an hour away from where I live now. And we took photos at all of the Ghostbuster filming locations. And about 3 or 4 people said to me, "You look like Bill Murray," because like my hair was just like crazy and messy and horrible and just really unkempt. And I have that receding hairline. And I was like, it's the nicest thing anyone's ever said about my appearance I've ever heard. And I mean, it goes back and forth. They're all amazing characters. They're all really well written. Sarah and I agree that Ernie Hudson is the most underrated Ghostbuster. So you know what? Because he's the most underrated Ghostbuster, I'm gonna go with Winston for right now, for sure.
Solid choice.
I agree.
Well, thank you so much. You know, we're wrapping up here, but before we go, do you have any like advice or little tidbits of wisdom that you can pass on to anybody who's sort of interested in pursuing art, but also pursuing sort of a very like, I don't want to say fan focused, but you know, maybe genre focused type of art like that you chose to do?
Yeah, obviously don't do what I did and get a real job. Would be the the best financial advice I could give you. Honestly, I'm gonna impart a couple of pearls of wisdom that people passed on to me, and I took very seriously, and they seem to have worked out for me. The first thing was put your stuff out there. Don't be afraid to put everything out on. You have so many outlets. Put it on Twitter, DeviantArt, Instagram. If you want to animate, put it on YouTube, on Newgrounds, whatever your choice is. Just put it out there. If you are focused on fan stuff, the fans on those outlets are gonna find it. Like, use the hashtags, use the tags, be smart about it. Do everything you can to like really make sure that people are seeing it. Don't just post it on one page and then be like, oh well, that's it. Push it out there, especially if you're confident in your work at that point, and even if you're not. So that's number one. Number two, don't feel like you have to go to art school and pay for it, because it's really not. It's not that art school was a mistake on my part, but I feel like what I got out of art school the most was that work ethic, and that was something that came from me, not from other people. And a lot of it was me doing research and me looking up stuff on YouTube, and going back in the day when people went to the library to look stuff up. Like, all of that stuff is out there. Skillshare is amazing. There's a lot of amazing classes. There's a million online resources to learn how to do the things that you want to do. Take advantage of those things. It's worth it. If you're interested in digital art, I highly recommend starting with an iPad Pro and Procreate. I know it's expensive, but if it's something that you're serious about, if you really do care about it, and you want to get into digital art, that's where I would say the best place to start is. I started with Photoshop and a drawing tablet, where it's this like separate thing where you're looking in one spot and drawing another. And for me, it was really disconnecting, and it was hard for me to reconcile where I was drawing versus looking somewhere else. So I would say, don't do that. Do something where you can draw directly on the screen. And really, I think the best option is an iPad Pro with Procreate, but there are other options out there. If you do your research, there's people who are more learned than I with the beginner tablets and stuff like that. Do your homework. Those things are out there, and they're not as expensive as using a setup that I have now. And really, the only other pearl of advice I have is find like-minded people that are going to push you the way that you're going to push them. Because when you guys are pushing each other and you're throwing each other work and saying, hey, I'm working on this, what do you think? And when you're collaborating with people and you're working together, you're not only getting the experience of working with other people, which later on when you're hired, it's going to be a lot easier to kind of adapt to that, and to, you kind of develop good protocols isn't the word, but just like not like politeness either, but just like courtesy to other people, like how to set things up for other people so it's not a nightmare, you know what I mean? And then later on, when you get something that's like, this is a nightmare, you know how not to do it to somebody else later. But find other people that are passionate about what you're passionate about. It kind of goes with, putting yourself out there. Find communities of people that are excited about the things you're excited about. Like you guys are excited, like, you know what I mean? And like, how much more fulfilling is it? And it's just better. It's just those endorphins are going to come when you find other people like that. So don't be shy. Don't try not to be introverted. I'm a very introverted person, and it was hard for me to kind of come out of my shell and do that stuff. But, post in those online communities, get involved with, meetups when, it's a little safer to do that kind of thing. If there's digital meetups or whatever, like whatever you can do to meet people who are interested in the things you're doing, do it, because there's a lot of people that are into the same stuff you're in. And when you're kind of coming up at the same time, you're going to grow together, you're going to push each other, and they're going to be a connection later, and they're going to have your back when they need somebody, and you're going to have their back when you need somebody. So that's everything I got. And believe in yourself, because, if you love doing something, we have one life, right? Live it. Do the stuff that you care about doing. Don't do, obviously you got to put food on the table, but I think it's more important to scrape by and do something you're loving than to make a lot of money and be dead inside when you wake up every day. So, but that's just my 2 cents.
There you go. Some awesome advice.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us this evening. And
thank you guys.
Oh, was great chatting with you, and hopefully we see you in Anaheim.
Yes,
Yes.
you will. And big, huge thank you to the both of you guys. I mean, the clone detachment is always thinking of me and always including me and stuff. I love you guys. If it's not obvious, like I love. If this whole time I realized you couldn't see my racer shirt, I'm wearing it. Like I am a proud, very, very proud honorary member. I think the 501st does amazing work. I love being a part of the clone detachment. You guys, Sarah, Jason, you guys specifically are amazing. Anytime you guys need anything, I'm always excited to like whatever. Yes, the answer is yes. I don't care what it is. Yes. So I thank you guys for everything you do for me, for including me here, and really everything in between.
Well, thank you, Joe.
All right. Take care.